Hey everyone, this is Derek just popping in to say that there will be full spoilers in this episode for the movie Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. So if you do not want spoilers, please don't listen. Thanks. And come back afterwards, because we'd love to have you listen afterwards. Dane and Derek is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. You can find content warnings in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dane and Derek. Sorry we've been gone for a little bit. It's because of a lot of things, life and all that, but mostly because I don't have a good excuse. I haven't finished editing the episodes, but it's okay because today we're here with a very special episode for you. Isn't that right, Dane?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so special that I'm eating while we're doing this.
Yeah. Today is the day. We are going to the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves fan event 2 days before the movie comes out. And by the time you're hearing this, it'll be probably Thursday, the 30th. So if you haven't made up your mind about going to see the movie, hopefully this will be informative as to whether or not it's worth your $20.
Yep.
We were not hired by Hasbro or Wizards or AMC to speak about this.
No.
But we did just discover that there was a fan event and it was waited for us to get in early. So
Yeah. And here's the thing. This is you and I trying to go to a movie together, basically.
Basically.
So how this is going to work for people is I'm an hour ahead of Derek. So I'm going in Colorado. He's still going in LA. We're recording now. I'm going to record some thoughts immediately before and after I see the film. Derek's going to do the same thing. That's not going to be with each other. And then once Derek's done with the movie, which is going to be about an hour after me, we're going to record together again. So that's going to be at like 11:30, maybe closing on midnight for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be loopy. But it also means that right now, beforehand, because I'm going to have to drive a little bit, I'm eating on the show, and we're just going to do it. Yeah, because here's the thing. Okay, so there have been even like people who review things for a living have seen the movie, right? And I haven't heard anything terrible.
Yeah.
Which is the weird thing. Because this is supposed to be terrible. Like, that's how these go. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because there was the early 2000s Dungeons and Dragons movie, right?
Yep, the early 2000s one.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was I guess, late 2000s movie, like a TV movie.
There was? I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. And that movie spawned like 6 sequels.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, I guess for some historical context, right? The original Dungeons and Dragons movie came out in the year 2000.
Yeah.
1 year before Harry Potter and The Lord of the Rings, which both came out in 2001.
Before that, there was I know that there was a period of time where Gary Gygax was just like trying to sell D&D to anybody and everybody, right?
Yep.
So there's the animated show.
Yep. Yeah, there haven't been many takes at this.
For the longevity of the property, yeah, there haven't been. On the other hand, for the like profitability of the property, it seems about right. Like, in the same hand, shouldn't there have been like a Magic the Gathering movie by now?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We're a team of thieves. And when you do this, you're bound to make enemies. Sometimes those enemies come looking for revenge.
Seeing the trailers and whatnot, there's iconography, but there's no story that's being adapted, right? There's no It's not like Lord of the Rings, where there is a tale to be told with characters and arcs and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And so like I guess my question is this. What would make this a good movie and what would make this a good D&D movie? Cuz I think the answer to that is a little different.
Yeah, because I think what Dungeons and Dragons commonly has fallen into is the trope of it having to be like Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
And so I think what makes a good D&D movie is not at all what makes a good Lord of the Rings movie. So I think you kind of have to go back to like it's more like sword and sorcery roots versus its Tolkien-esque roots. You
Yeah.
know, like I think like the trailer, I've only seen the trailer like once or twice, so I really don't know have a lot going into this.
Mhm.
But from what I gather, right, there's a core group of characters who are all lovable, right? Who
In
are trying
theory.
to do something to fix a mistake. So already there you have player characters trying to do something as a team to fix a mistake, which is a very common D&D ism and D&D conundrum.
Yeah.
Um
One of you and I's most beloved games is that.
yeah, exactly. And so I think that for it to be a good D&D movie, you have to bring in some element of the table dynamics into the storytelling of it all, because sometimes it is just kind of weird and random, like in the
Mhm.
Critical Role show when like they have that scene where they're trying to unlock a door and it takes them like 5 minutes, right?
Yep.
And it's a funny bit, like that's like a D&D ism. And I think like you have to have a healthy amount of those coupled with a healthy amount of just like good characters, like characters we can actually like sympathize with.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Uh, yeah,
yeah,
no,
go for it.
totally. So like from my perspective, you could make a good D&D movie with all the iconography if you basically make fantasy Guardians of the Galaxy. That's what you need
Yeah.
to do. You need it to be kind of a team movie. You kind of need everybody to be lovable fuck ups, like you said.
Mhm.
Various versions of lovable fuck ups, of course, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, the one difference about all of it though is I don't know if that would actually be a good adaptation of D&D. Then I think it's just a D&D themed kind of
Yeah.
campy fantasy adventure in the theme that maybe to its credit the MCU has blown the doors open on what large audiences are willing to accept. So great. Um but as we've talked about with adaptations before, is for me a good adaptation needs to capture the spirit of something,
Mhm.
not the strict plot or anything necessarily, right?
Mhm.
Um and for D&D it's weird, and this is something that always struggles with video games adaptations and or any sort of interactive medium adaptation, because there's an aspect that's just always kind of going to be missing. Like I don't know, I can think of one way in which I would come away from the theater feeling like I'd gotten some sort of film version of D&D. Um and that is, well, I guess two ways. There's the Critical Role way where like they've got Vox Machina now, where it's just they just adapted one, and that's one way. I think the perfect D&D movie's already been made, and it's Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Okay.
like I actually think it needs to be sort of an absurdist comedy. It can't be even as serious as like a Guardians of the Galaxy tonally gets at times.
That is
Um,
true. Yeah.
be and my reason behind that is it's not that D&D games can't get there, but the thing is they only get there if you care about the characters
Right.
yourself and they're your characters. It's your story. And that's a
Mhm.
faithful adaptation of a serious tabletop experience. I
Yeah.
don't know how you do that in a pre-scripted format without the audience somehow being involved. Like if you made a choose your own adventure movie of at this budget and caliber, maybe that would be wild and
Yeah.
strange, and borderline just a live action video game. So then I don't know, but with like the Monty Python of it all, you could capture the utter absurdity and chaos of sitting there and playing that game. And I
Yeah.
think that could be a faithful adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't expect us to get that, right? But if you were to take Monty Python levels of absurdity and willingness to just do humor stuff that's very strange, um, you could do things like, I don't know if you've seen, there's like a Tumblr post or someone where someone's like, the perfect D&D movie is 5 minutes in, one of the main characters dies, and 5 minutes later they show up, the same actor with a worse and different accent playing a completely different character, and nobody comments about it. Or everybody except for the main cast is played by the same singular actor, right? Like, and
Yeah.
everybody takes it seriously, right? There are those sorts of things that you could do, but it would need to be a complete screwball comedy.
Yeah.
That's my thought. So like what I'm kind of expecting from like the limited little bit of news and things I've gotten is I'm sort of expecting to go see D&D themed Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, it's got Chris Pine, in kind of the lead role. Like, the trailer had very Guardians of the Galaxy vibes with like the soundtrack, right? Like, and I think that's the way to do it. I
Yeah.
just don't know, like, I just don't know if that's like beyond getting people excited about Beholders. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
I mean, it's hard, right? Because like you have to hew between what we imagine and what is actually happening at the table. There's
Yeah.
been so many like D&D web shows where it's like they're at a table, they're rolling dice, and then it cuts to them in game, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen the show LARPs, which is a really great show, that I feel like is a great adaptation of like what a D&D game kind of web series could be, except that's more specifically about like LARPing and stuff like
Right.
that.
Like Harmon's Quest did that pretty well,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Um,
they did. The other thing too, right, is like I feel like, when you brought up Monty Python, that made me think of like another movie that I would
mhm.
kind of use as a comp. And like, I think about the Lego movie,
Oh, yeah,
you
actually.
know, like the Lego movie, I think falls into that same category of like absurdist, kind of ridiculous and kind of out there. But there's
Yeah.
also a lot of like sincerity with there. And I think that, especially like the ending of the Lego movie, I think
Mhm.
is something that a D&D movie will always butt up against is, do you include players in the movie? Is it all
Right.
just an imagination or not?
Right. And I guess that's the other thing is like I'm expecting it to be played straight, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like I'm expecting us to like believe Baldur's Gate is real or what have you.
Yeah.
Or it's probably not going to be Baldur's Gate because that's not Forgotten Realms, is it?
It is Forgotten Realms.
Oh, that is Forgotten Realms.
Forgotten
Okay.
Realms is quite a huge realm that we have
It
forgotten
really
about.
is. Okay, so like I'm expecting us to just believe that Baldur's Gate is real. Like
Yeah.
when you play Baldur's Gate, like that.
Mhm.
I'm that's what I'm expecting. But now that you bring it up, there's nothing to say that it couldn't take the Lego movie route. Spoilers for the Lego movie, I guess. In which like there is a break to air quotes reality,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I think that there could be a lot of heart there, but I really don't know if they could land it the way the Lego movie did, where it was kind of revealed at the end a little. I feel like it would need to be woven out throughout, in which case then I personally would need the movie to be about the players and definitely not the characters, right? It needs to be a vehicle, so to
Yeah.
speak, which could be good in its own way. I guess there's a lot of fertile ground for it, but at the same time, like for me, it always just kind of comes back around to like, okay, um, and yet this will still probably not be a good adaptation of D&D for me. Like that's how I'm going into this a little bit, which
Mm.
maybe is kind of a negative way to go into it, but like that's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm looking forward to maybe a good movie. But I don't know how. I don't expect them to adapt it well, so to
Mm.
speak.
Okay. Yeah, I guess then we're in similar boats. I'm mostly just hoping it will be fun, because I feel like so often do fantasy movies take themselves too seriously.
True,
And I
true.
think for a D&D movie especially, right? Like there needs to be a little bit of humor and ridiculousness.
Oh yeah.
Truth be told, we helped the wrong person steal the wrong thing. We didn't mean to unleash the greatest evil the world has ever known. But we're gonna fix it.
So how do we pull that off? Figure it out over a drink?
Probably best.
So I will say this. I haven't seen The Last of Us, the TV show adaptation yet, and I don't think I'm going to. But I played the game, and something about that I've been thinking about that because it's like the closest analogy I have. It's like, oh look, a game adaptation that worked.
Yeah.
The Last of Us, honestly, the worst part of that game was the game. Like the gameplay kind of meh at best. Like it's an okay third person shooter with some survival horror crafting elements. And it's at its best when it's just doing like vaguely interactive storytelling. Vaguely. It's a game that wanted to be an HBO level show. That's what it wanted to be. You know, like, and so like I people are like, oh, this is it. They figured out how to do it. I'm like, I don't think they did. Like, I think that there was a pretty decent, you know, sci-fi / apocalyptic horror story in there. That I think that's what was going on.
Right.
You know, and weirdly, like for me, I look at D&D and I'm like, how do you do this? Because there's like, I look at it and I'm like, there's nothing to adapt except vibes. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Which on the one hand, great. You can just take some vibes and you can make a decent movie, slap D&D on it, and you've got that. But like, if you're looking for someone to actually like capture what it means to play D&D in a different art form, I don't know how you do that because play is the thing.
Yeah. Well, I think
right?
that's why the actual play format is so popular now. Because it is the closest you can get to adapting D&D by actually just playing the game.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's kind of where I'm like, I don't know what more you can do here. Like people would say like, I could say like, I think improv theater could adapt D&D, but then they're just more or less playing D&D at that point, right? Like,
yeah.
And so like I don't know about all of this, and it's very interesting to go into it. Kind of like the Lego movie is a good sort of analogy there of like a lot of big budget Hollywood filmmaking is big. It's advertising, it's trying to build world, it's content generation, less than it is like really strictly we're just trying to tell a singular story here, right? Especially in like the blockbustery realm these days, right?
Yeah.
And so but even then it is sometimes like sometimes you really get slapped in the face of like, am I going to go watch 2-hour ad? I think I am, you know, like, and sometimes those movies weirdly get to transcend that because they are odd and no one expects anything from them anyways. Nobody expected anything from the Lego movie, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't expect a damn thing from this.
Yeah.
If it's coherent and makes me chuckle a few times and has good visuals, it's already probably the best D&D adapted thing that's ever been done, at least on screen. Like,
yeah, I think that's what I feel like. That's like just the general vibe. I think people just want a movie that doesn't take itself so seriously and isn't, rides that fine line between cheesy and campy, or like at least if there's going to be cheese, make it sincere cheese.
Yeah.
Like I think like people are just, I hope people are just going into it with an open mind and hoping for a good movie. It feels like it's going to be a solid movie. Like And I mean, like, I'll put it this way, Dane. I'm seeing it twice. I'm seeing it tonight with you, and then I'm seeing it again this weekend with some friends. And
Hilariously, yeah, I'm actually doing the exact same thing.
nice.
And I I don't know what I don't think you are, I bet, but like I'm going with someone who's never played D&D before, never cracked one of the books. Um
Mm,
it's our shared friend Dalton. He and I are going. Um
wow. Oh,
he honestly, he's just going to go see a movie with me, which is very sweet, and I appreciate him being like, "Dane likes this. We'll go see this." Um
oh, that's great. That's so great. Seeing a movie with Dalton's a good time. Um,
mhm. Yeah.
yeah, I'm seeing it with pretty much everyone that I'm seeing it with has played D&D, with the exception of one of them has played D&D, but not only like once. So pretty
You
fresh
know,
crowd.
I am absolutely hoping that it's just a solid movie.
Yeah.
But I'm torn on some things here because and I'm wondering like why do I want it to be a solid movie? And I think my best answer is kind of going to something you said, which is I like the fantasy genre and it gets a horrible rap in film particularly
Yeah.
like more than maybe any other medium
Yeah.
does fantasy get a hard time being like greenlit, and so for that reason I want it to be good and to make a lot of money for that reason.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, I'm like, but do I want it to really help wizards right now? I'm not really vibing with them at the moment.
Mhm.
um and alternately like Hasbro, I don't know. Like, do I want like a giant ad for D&D? Kind of, because I want people to come play in this space, but I also am sort of still like the world is so much bigger than D&D in that
Yeah.
way. And
Mhm.
I'm also like, well, whenever the hobby gets bigger, of course that spills over into the smaller areas, but also it's like D&D is already just so damn dominant. Like, grr. I don't know what to say about it.
Yeah. I think this is probably a good spot for us to save our thoughts,
Mhm.
clear our minds,
Mhm.
and get ready to watch this movie.
Honestly, yeah.
I think it'll be interesting. I'm gonna try and record a little bit on my drive over and a little bit when I'm in the theater, and then of course right after on my drive back to hurry back to record with you. Um,
Yeah, same. Same.
um, but yeah, you'll at least have a little bit of a break. So I'm curious how this hour dilation will affect your thoughts.
Yeah, like I'll get an hour to think about it
Mhm.
ish. And you're going to
Yeah,
have an hour more to stew on it beforehand.
exactly. So I'm wondering how that's going to affect us.
I have
Right?
I have one question though.
Yeah.
You and I are now in our late 20s.
Yeah.
Um as we extensively went over our birthdays recently. Um um and I've been playing this game for 19 years now. I don't know how long you've been playing. I can't remember exactly, but it's in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we're both gonna hit 20 years this year.
yeah, and I am trying to also throw myself backwards a little bit into like high school and middle school. This would have been cool.
Yeah,
This would have been so fucking cool.
it would've.
You know, like I would have been stoked for this.
We would have been
And
in that theater together, which would have been really sick.
that would have been awesome. That would have been
Yeah.
so cool.
The
I would
whole
have
crew
gone.
probably would have been there.
Yeah, absolutely. We would have gone with our D&D group. Like it would have been so cool. And
Yeah.
I don't want to take away that from anybody. Um
Mhm.
I'm saying all these things because I have, I suppose, a certain amount of like jadedness and like some sort of like feelings about like the film industry and large corporations in general that has a lot less to do with just the hobby that I'm extremely fond of. And even fifth edition itself and frankly all 5 editions of D&D. I'm very fond of those games in and of themselves, even if I don't think they're perfect. And so like I'm wondering how much of this is like a little bit of like crotchetiness, like how much of this is me being like just kind of like skeptical, right?
Yeah.
And not remembering that there's probably like hundreds of people who worked on this movie, a lot of whom are probably D&D fans,
Mm-hmm.
who probably had an amazing time being like, I am working on the Dungeons and Dragons movie. We have hundreds of millions of dollars to blow on making a red dragon and a black dragon look accurate.
Yeah.
What the
Yeah.
fuck? Like that there is still that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to try and like hang on to that a little bit, and also like make sure that I'm not feeling any sort of like protectiveness. Like there's none of this like feeling of, well, D&D wasn't even close to cool when you and I were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was right before it got cool. More or less. Like I remember D&D basically becoming kind of cool in college, more or less to me.
Yeah. It
Um,
definitely really took off then.
yeah. And so like and I don't know, I don't want to be like a complete downer on the movie before I've even seen it, because I have problems with capitalism.
Yeah, it would be nice to also just see more of these movies,
Yeah, I
Like,
I think you're right. I think you're right about that. Like deep down, I want this to win and work out well, specifically because I want more films like this.
yeah.
I would really love in like 3 or 4 years to go see something, and it would be so cool if it was original. But let's hope. Let's hope that this is very good.
Yes.
I'm gonna go get in a car and drive on over. But what you guys are gonna hear next is Derek and I talking into our phones in moments. You are gonna know in mere moments what we are gonna be waiting hours to find out.
Yep. Okay. I guess I'll see you in a few hours, Dane.
Yeah, talk to you in a moment, I guess, through the power of editing.
You need cool. Then give us a fighting chance. We're gonna need strength. You got this, right?
I know you don't.
We also need courage, magic, and you.
Okay, so I just got here to the movie theater. Still sitting in the car, gonna give it a second while I record, 'cause I don't want to talk like a madman to myself around people. On my way over here, I had two thoughts, though. One positive, one, or a hope and a fear. Another way I think this movie might succeed is if I come away wanting to play D&D. I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier, but like, if I come out of the theater being like, man, that was a fun story and all, but you know what I want to do? I want to go see my friends soon and play D&D. Like if I think about that, or if I reminisce about other games I've already played, I think that would be a version of this that's successful too. One thing I realized maybe I should be afraid of is almost the Derek's hope about this film not taking itself too seriously, and there being levity, and there being more width given to the fantasy genre taken too far, in the sense of I don't want this to be a mockery of the genre, or a mockery of tabletop role-playing games, or a mockery of any of this. It's okay if it's not serious. It's okay if it's funny and a little irreverent and all of it. I don't need this to I don't need it to be Lord of the Rings, and I don't need it to be like a true, like, this is amazing, this is God's gift to man or whatever. But like, I do kind of need it to be a love letter to this genre and this game. And if it's
a little mean-spirited or doesn't take some care with it, I think I'll be a little disappointed. Maybe, and I think that would be a way I think it could fail. Maybe even worse than just being kind of a bad movie. Is if it makes fun of something that people care a lot about. So yeah, those are my thoughts. And I am going to go ahead and I'll pop back on here when I've seen it and I can answer these questions and have thoughts. All right.
Okay, so I'm at the Burbank and I'm walking in. I'm at the theater. They have this really cool, like, immersive, like, wall thing. It's pretty cool. Some nice D&D themed stuff. All right, let me go get my seat. Got a cool poster, though. That's pretty cool.
You risked our lives for
In the
this?
theater now.
Worth it.
Here we go.
Thank you for choosing AMC Theaters and celebrating 100 years of movie memories with us.
Dungeons and Dragons. It's a great adventure with characters that you're going to care about. We want to give them the movie that they've been hoping for.
It's so much fun. What is that again? It's an owlbear.
Be warned. There is evil here.
I'm glad he's on our side.
Just leaving the theater now. That was a pretty good movie. Very funny. A lot of good reactions. Yeah. It was good. More thoughts on the drive.
All right, so just got out of the movie. Let's see. I'm going to just say overall, pleased. Very pleased. That movie was super fun. It was corny in the right way and earnest in all the right ways. It was very much Guardians of the Galaxy by way of Forgotten Realms and D&D. There were some D&D tropes in there that I did not expect to be in there that made it actually feel way more like a D&D movie than I really kind of expected. I am almost certain that Derek is going to be pleased as punch about this movie because it was a mid-budget fantasy movie and it was fun and like a good Saturday morning romp in the best way without really giving up on fantasy. And my biggest fear that I mentioned right before I went in there of it being kind of mocking to what it is, didn't manifest. It just didn't. And more than that, I did come out of it kind of wanting to play D&D, which, I mean, it's probably the hope of people who made the movie in some ways. And also, though, there were just, like, it hit. Like, it was sweet and, like, kind of, I don't know if, like, I kind of want to say by the books, but not in a bad way. Like, Ed's character arc was predictable, but I don't want it to not be predictable. Like, you know, the characters who had arcs all had understandable, straightforward arcs, but they didn't land in the wrong way. And also, frankly, like, it's a sweet little moment there at the end with, you know, having to accept, yeah, it's a nice little, I don't know, I don't think twist is anywhere the right word, it's too strong, but to have the tablet be used to bring back her mother the whole time, like, that it still brought back her mother, very sweet, very good. And honestly, there's a door left open for more, but it's over. The story ended. That's good. That is something that is so missing in so much media lately, is the fact that it just have a beginning, middle, and end, you know? And I really, really appreciate that bit of it. Plus, fun, weird magic heist movie, which is not a thing I'd seen on screen before. I've seen sci-fi heist movie, but not magic heist movie. Also, the fucking resurrection scene, the speak with dead scene, that was fucking hilarious. I have played that scene so many times. The whole, like, accidentally asking a question and then using up the spell. Totally done that. It was great. You know, and, you know, Chris Pine definitely charmed the socks off. Honestly, the whole cast, very, very charming. Yeah, it's honestly everything I ever could have really hoped for from a D&D movie that I could imagine actually getting made. Like, I have that whole thing about the whole, oh, what about like a true Monty Python, like just bits till the end of time? Yeah, that's never going to get made. And honestly, there's sort of YouTube for that. Those bits have been done and made, you know. And in terms of the, like, cutting in and out of reality, that's the other route. And we've also had that route in other movies and sort of situations, so it's not conceivable that couldn't happen or on that. But honestly, I hope this movie does well at the box office. I really, really do. Just because I would like more films like this, and I'd like it to be seen that this is a successful way forward. Honestly, it's just a fantasy movie with just enough D&D tropes and official branded monsters and spells and names and things to be a D&D movie, to have a license attached to it. I think sometimes it's a little sad that, like, big budget Hollywood can't take a chance on just a movie in some ways, that it needs to be attached to a franchise so it can make money, and kind of get that. So honestly, if this is the way it gets done, that's kind of okay, I think, for me. Like, if we're stuck with the way things are, which they could be different, but that was Willow. That really felt like Willow to me. You know, and if Willow gets made now under the guise, I know that there's the Willow show, but like under the guise of Dungeons and Dragons, so that enough people will go see it, fine. I guess that's the way it is right now, but I hope this really opens some doors, and very fun, very fun. I had a really good time. Not sad that I'm going to see it again. All right. That's that.
So I didn't actually record more thoughts on the drive. I'm recording these at home because I definitely was just trying to let the movie sink in. But I think that this was a fucking slam of a movie. I had a blast. There were so many things that I laughed at, so many things that I got as a fan, and I felt that it really did. It felt like the people who made this movie played D&D in a way that I hadn't seen from other D&D movies or other adaptations of video games and stuff like that and literature. So that was nice. That was really good. It felt really earnest in that way. I think it's a masterclass in filmmaking and bookending a story. And I love that it's just one movie. I love that we're probably not going to see a sequel. That's the most exciting thing to me. It's just one complete story that I can loop, that I can put on in the background, that I can watch and show other people. And honestly, I feel pretty hyped, and I really want to play D&D with friends. I haven't played in a campaign in a little bit, and I haven't GM'd a game in a while. And it really does make me want to, like, do that again. So, yeah, that was nice. That was a good feeling. Overall, I wish I'd gotten popcorn, but regardless, I'm going to see this movie again. over the weekend, and so I'm excited to see it with a crowd of people who are both in the D&D and not in the D&D, or have tried it only a handful of times. So it should be good.
This one's dangerous. But whatever happens, we'll be ready.
Okay, so for those listening, through the magic of some editing and maybe some janky audio that I've put in the middle to pass the time, Dane and I have now seen the 2 hours and 20-minute long movie Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Hell yeah, it is 11 p.m. where I am.
101 where I am, so I'm doing great, but you are way past your bedtime.
Oh, I am so past my bedtime.
Well,
all right.
Give me the TLDR.
I think it's exactly what you wanted. Was my first takeaway.
Yeah. My TLDR is that this movie fucking slams.
All right, fair enough. I definitely came away from it feeling like, yeah, this is fantasy Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, holy crap, that's how I'm going to end up describing it to anyone who I talk to about. On the whole, I thought it was super fun. It's exactly what you were hoping for, especially in terms of mid to high budget fantasy movie.
Yeah.
With a lighter tone.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a couple of criticisms, which I definitely brought up, or I didn't bring up in my little bip right after, which is there are a couple like sloppy storytelling moments in there that I'm like, that was a line, that was a single shot. I don't know why that wasn't in there. You know, the ones that immediately come to mind are there could have been a line to his daughter about the plan. There could have been a shot of him grabbing the magic tablet from the boat. There definitely should have been a shot of Olga getting stabbed. I don't remember there being a shot of that.
There isn't one.
Yeah, so like there's a couple of things where like offhandedly they mention clerics. Offhandedly they kind of talk about tieflings, but they just rest on you already understanding basically what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like it's just a couple things where I'm like that's a slightly sloppy storytelling, but not, I wouldn't describe it as breaking anything. Because a lot of it for me was just like it was extremely earnest storytelling. There were a couple of like just solid character arcs that, you know, like nothing about it was like surprising, but do you want it to be surprising? I don't think you do. Like it's like just storytelling. Like I'm like, yeah, I definitely want these characters to have these arcs. They are set up for these arcs and I want to see them through. And just enough like little things were just executed really well that I really was like, yeah, I'm this is about as good as it has any right to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, like for example, the fact that like the tablet that was stolen for the express purpose of resurrecting her mother still did. Good storytelling. That's just like solid storytelling. I was like, yeah, that's correct. You said that this thing was meant to resurrect her mom, and it did.
Mm-hmm.
Good work. You did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I really enjoyed was like from a filmmaking standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the structure of the film was really smart. It's a framed narrative. It's people telling stories. It sort of brings it back down to like kind of like some parts of D&D in a way. But what's interesting, okay, I don't know if you saw this, but like at the event, so they gave out posters and a cloth map.
Yep.
Advertising to start playing on D&D Beyond.
Yep.
But then they also had like a behind the scenes featurette. and there's all this stuff that was like practical effects. Like some of the monsters are full prosthetics. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
that was like wild to me.
all of that was really good. I was actually kind of I was watching the movie and I was like, I think this thing's a little bit lower budget than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a problem. Like I was like, this is fun. Like I think I mentioned Willow,
Yeah.
or maybe I mentioned Dark Crystal or something or like Labyrinth. Um, that's what this was. This was a Labyrinth. This was a Willow. This was a Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
Like mid-budget fantasy film with a lot of heart, a lot of earnestness, some camp, a lot of camp, not super self-serious. But also, I mentioned this in my pre-show or pre watching the film thing is I realized one of my biggest fears was that the film would be beyond irreverent and switch over into um,
Mm-hmm.
mean spirited to the like there's a mid 2000s superhero movie that seems to hate superheroes.
Yeah.
It's I think of it as the like in the original X-Men movie of the yellow spandex line of like fuck superhero stuff. you
Mm-hmm.
know it's the same. It's this. I was afraid of that energy and it wasn't there. I was pleasantly surprised with all of that
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
um and then I, I don't know about you, but my favorite scene in the whole movie was actually the Ray speak with dead scene.
Oh yeah, it's a great scene.
And some of that has to do with the fact of like I have played that scene.
Yeah.
I have played that scene. Um, it's like that's fucking hilarious. This is a good bit. I'm very curious to see how will land with non D&D players though. But
Yeah.
it was like I was like this is funny and interesting storytelling actually, to get like the 1,000-year flashback done through like 5 different perspectives. It's
Mm-hmm.
like this is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um,
And they're all just playing like a game of like passing the ball, so to speak.
absolutely,
Yeah.
they're passing the ball. Um, it's like it's a bunch of dumb ways to die. Like it's. I was like, this is like a good little like bit. Like sometimes in like movies there's like scenes where I'm like, oh, that's the whole concept in a way. And I was like, yeah, this is like if I had to cut one scene out of the movie to be like, this is a Dungeons and Dragons movie, I'd be like, this is it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, um, yeah, I don't know. How else are you feeling about it? Especially because you were very hopeful about this being a certain way, and I really think it was that way.
Yeah. No, I think it lived up to what I was expecting, which was really pleasant. I've definitely walked into a lot of movies. The more and more I do movies, the more and more I walk into movies, and the movie doesn't necessarily quite meet what I'm looking for.
Hmm.
And I think this one really, hit me. It really slammed, so to speak. I think what I enjoyed the most was just how carefree it was. The casting was really good. I think there's so many things that you can't get away with without Chris Pine playing a bard.
Yeah,
And I think that
yeah.
there's so much that happens. There's so much explanation and like D&D planning isms that I
Hmm.
think like you can only get away with because you have a bard and because it's Chris Pine. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I
that was a big one.
the movie leans on the cast pretty hard.
Yeah.
Um uh yeah, I will say the actress who played the druid, whose name I don't know.
Sophia Lillis? I have the Wikipedia up.
Thank you.
Um,
I think she was the weakest link and she wasn't bad, certainly. She certainly was not bad.
She certainly had the least screen time, almost less than Rajesh Page, who played Zenk Yendar.
Yeah, but
Like,
he stole every
yeah, every
like
scene.
second that he's on screen. It's like, yeah, and we're focused here.
That is such like a paladin
It was such a
vibe.
paladin vibe, but also I was like, oh, it's the DM NPC who helps them through a major portion of the quest.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, like there's some tropes in there that I didn't expect them to do, and they did very subtly that I did appreciate. Like that one was very funny, especially with them all being like, "Will you hang around?" And they're like, "No." Um, like there were some very good bits in there. Um, do you think I hope we don't know this bit yet, which is we don't know how well this movie's going to do. Um, how busy was it there for you?
It was an almost full theater.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was an almost full theater.
Mine was not very full. I'll admit.
Oh man.
It was a smattering. I mean, it is a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that says.
I hope when you see it over the weekend with Dalton, it's a more full crowd, because that I think also really contributed to why I had such a good time, because people were laughing, people were cheering, people were clapping. Like,
Mhm.
it was like a good time. People really loved the Speak with Dead scene. People were laughing at that. Just the repeat of the repeat of the punchline over and over
Yeah, it
again.
was like it it's that good comedy repetition, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I once saw a comic do a bit where he basically was like, I'm gonna keep doing this thing right now,
Mm-hmm.
and for a while it's not gonna be funny again. It's gonna be funny and then it's gonna stop being funny, and then I'm gonna push it long enough and it'll get funny again. And I'm like, that's like an interesting like comedy choice of like knowing how long to stretch out a bit. And I think they did it.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
I
I think too, like, what was really fun about the movie is just I thought the pacing was really good. Like, they don't barrage you with too many jokes, there weren't too many slow bits, and they move from scene to scene. There's obviously, I think there's definitely things cut. I do wonder if when it comes out on Blu-ray they'll have like an extended version with like 2 scenes added. Um
mhm.
it was a pretty tight, like, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like, there wasn't a breath wasted.
No, it didn't drag. I definitely there are a couple like little bits like I said where I'm like I could have used a line or two extra just for like slightly tighter storytelling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was paced pretty well. My only worry with like the story, like the storytelling shortcuts that they've taken,
Mhm.
I am wondering how that will land for someone who doesn't understand a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm very curious about that, but I don't know. I thought they made some good choices in terms of like classes to throw at you.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
they
I know that Chris Pine is sort of a bard, but he's not really. He's just a high charisma rogue, really.
yeah.
And it's unclear what Olga is.
She
Probably barbarian,
yeah.
maybe fighter, warrior lady. Like they
Yeah.
they they did those two things and left that be vague. They was like druid is shapeshifter. That's it. Like they are not a spellcaster, definitely not. Don't say that. And then like sorcerer is enough of a word, right?
Yeah. People know what
Um
sorcerer means.
yeah, I think that was like some really good choices. Like I think it would have been really troublesome if they'd been like warlock. You'd have to start like explaining
Mhm.
stuff. I thought they did some good choices there. Um I'm trying to think about I think maybe one thing that I did come away just feeling a little, I guess, sad about when I compare it to something like Willow or
Mm-hmm.
The Dark Crystal. It's less about the movie itself. But if you take the owl bear out, you take the displacer beast out, you change some of the words around. You say Templar, not Paladin. You do some stuff. It's not a D&D movie
No, yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
any
Mm-hmm.
more than a Willow or a Dark Crystal is.
Yeah.
And what makes me sad about that is less about the D&D thing around it and more kind of what we were talking about right at the end when we were chatting before, which is the fact that this movie required being a D&D movie to get made.
Yeah.
And that is that is not really a critique of this movie exactly, because I had a good time with this movie. I came out smiling. There were a lot of very sweet moments. I am, a total sucker for that last resurrection scene. Even though we did not see her getting stabbed, I am absolutely willing to forgive that for the fact that I was just like, good poetry there. Well done.
Yeah.
Um, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
just the fact that this movie doesn't get to exist without being an already existing IP just says something is unwell in the industry in a way. I don't know. Do you feel that? You would probably have a better beat on it than I do.
Yeah, I think that it's funny because this is something that Zach, my roommate, asked me right before I saw the movie about how does does the fact that it's a D&D movie make it does the movie benefit from using the property? And to an extent it does, right? It benefits from it being now a very much a household name in a way that is cool. It benefits from a
Mm-hmm.
litany of monsters and stuff like that. But at the same time, right, Green Knight's attached to a myth. Dungeons and Dragons is attached to a tabletop game. It's
Yeah.
only a matter of time before we get a Soulsborne movie,
Right.
And I
Which
think,
that
and
would be bad.
yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's really hard to get something born of something oh, this is just a fantasy script I wrote, it's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to get something like that because you almost need, because these films cost a lot of money, which this film costs 151 million reported, which for
That's low.
that's low for a blockbuster, which is wild to think, considering
Yeah.
that most Marvel movies cost 200 to 250 million dollars.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty low. And then you're kind of running into the fact that you need to have some way to rely on it being able to make back that money or for people to want to come see this movie. But then it's a real hit or miss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they don't all hit. Sometimes they don't all land. Sometimes it takes way too long. Remember what Aragon?
Yeah.
They're now just remaking it because it's been long enough that the taste of the movie is out of people's mouths and the books are still getting published and still finding themselves among young readers. But it's
Right.
definitely not its heyday, I would say. But
No.
um,
So your roommate asked the question, does the movie benefit from being a Dungeons and Dragons movie? And the answer is yes,
mhm.
because it benefits in the sense of it gets to exist. That's how it benefits.
Yeah. Mhm.
Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know because and probably to the movie's actual overall benefit, it doesn't really linger in the stuff that is super D&D in the sense of what is attached to the property, right? The speak with dead bit actually just works if you explain that you
Mhm.
only get a number of questions, right?
Yeah.
If you explain that, then it's just sort of like a silly, oh, that's fucking hilarious that any question that gets asked that they answer suddenly counts. So you have to you can waste it, and now you have to go fucking find another guy to right. Like that's funny. That's just a funny bit, right?
Mhm.
Just because it's attached to the raised dead spell, or saying the word Mordekainen, what does that do?
Yeah.
It doesn't do much. It only does something for the fan base.
Yeah.
And like the point of slapping on Dungeons and Dragons is we want a built-in fan base for this, a preset fan base to
Mhm.
come see this. And in that sense, yeah, then it benefits, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a matter of how you feel about that in the
Yeah.
terms of like the film industry, that it is required almost. But at the same time, I don't think Everything Everywhere All at Once was based off anything, was it?
No,
No.
it's an original
Okay.
screenplay. So like it
And
does
as
happen.
we've yeah, it does happen, and you know, often it's rewarded, right? John Wick of all things is a pure film franchise.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of things that actually work really, really well on film. Weird. They were written for film from the ground up. Strange how that works. Not to be salty or anything, but like
Yeah.
my thought on it is just that, like, on the other hand, if this is what it takes to take the risk, then okay, I guess, you know, because it's no good to like bury your head in the sand and pretend like you could get Willow greenlit now, you know.
Yeah.
You can't. Well, oddly, actually, you can get Willow greenlit now, but
Yeah.
not.
Well, it's on Disney Plus.
But it's on Disney Plus, and it's a TV show tied
So,
into an old a
yes.
movie
Yeah. Yeah.
capitalizing on. You could get Dark Crystal relit now, but
Right.
but relit, not first time, right?
Right. Like we couldn't take an original fantasy IP that we've worked on and
No,
we've made. It's hard.
absolutely not. You need to be like the fucking Russo. No, well,
Yeah.
yeah, that would probably work. Um, but like the Wachowskis, who did
Yeah. Yeah.
They did Jupiter Ascending, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
that wasn't good, certainly, but like you need to be that person, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the thing is that, like, as we're talking about this, like, Aragon, bad.
Mhm.
Jupiter Ascending was original, also bad, right? Like, being original does not mean that it's going to be good or bad. It just means that it is a different thing. And I am a person who wants original films to exist, that to be an option, that they don't need to go out and find a book with an audience that already exists, or a tabletop game, or I want both and please, because I love the Lord of the Rings films, and I very much like Willow. You know,
Yeah.
I there's no reason there shouldn't be both, but at this moment, it feels like you have to have something,
Yeah.
because everyone's afraid of the risk. Um,
Yeah. That's the hard part. It's the risk with it.
mhm, mhm.
Um yeah. But, who knows?
Here's hoping that this does really well,
Yeah.
and
Here's to hoping.
it opens up this sort of more middle budget, because
Yeah.
I actually think they did a great job with their budget.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
they really were economic with it,
Mhm.
um, and had a lot of fun. Um, and again, made like good choices to like on how to sort it all out. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot to some fun, I don't know, things, Easter eggs, whether the like story
Mhm.
things we liked. Like, they drop Elminster.
Yep.
Simon is a descendant of Elminster, which is cool. That's
Mhm.
a fun reference to the Forgotten Realms is Gandalf.
Yep.
The the subversion of the dragon trope was kind of funny. Um a dragon that had lived in its hoard way too long.
Yeah, that was a very silly version of a dragon, but very
Yeah.
fun.
Hmm.
I I liked seeing the black dragon for a moment.
Yeah.
Just because it was different. Um,
Yes.
Displacer Beast was great.
The 80s D&D cartoon character cameo.
Oh yeah, that
That
I
was
almost
wild.
missed that. Um, that was pretty good. I'm trying to think. Um, I will admit I did enjoy the Big B's crushing hand duel. That was silly.
Yeah, the
And
wizard duel was good.
yeah, that was I thought that was like, oh, neat. Um trying to think. I don't
Um,
know. I some of the just the funny thing is like some of my favorite bits weren't like necessarily D&D
oh, yeah, Bradley
bits.
Cooper.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper is a I couldn't decide if it was a halfling or gnome. That shit was funny. Like that shit was really funny.
Yeah.
Um ah,
Yeah.
yeah, I liked that. Honestly, everything with the portal stick,
Yep.
like that's just like I was like that's just fun thinking. Like
Mhm.
that's a fun way of doing a heist. Like
Yeah.
excellent. All of that just excellent.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of that. Um I don't I don't know. Like
There's
I guess I
yeah.
also really liked their that they leaned into the it's we don't know what the era is for clothes. Like sometimes people are very medieval or like extremely Renaissance or you know
Yeah.
forest elf fantasy hippies. Like I was like, this is good. Like it was fun to see all of that, and frankly,
Mhm.
I kind of appreciated them just throwing weird practical effect people in there, which is part of why like Dark Crystal super sticks out of my brain right now. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I, hard to argue with any of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's interesting. So the directors commented that the influences for the film include The Princess Bride,
yep,
Monty Python and the Holy Grail,
yep,
The Lord of the Rings,
mm-hmm,
and Indiana Jones.
mm-hmm,
Um, I think that's. I mean, those are all good things.
yeah,
I think. Yeah, I mean, I think like some of the spells were kind of fun to see. I think like the attunement bit was funny. Um,
yeah.
I thought that was a fun D&D ism like joke on it. Um,
That's true because you and I have had fun times with attunement. There was a weapon that you tried to attune to for a whole campaign that you never got to
mhm.
with me.
Yep, never got to and
No,
never got
never
it to
over
work.
never overcame that challenge.
Yep.
Mm,
Um, but that happens.
it does happen.
Yeah. I think I think what's interesting is that like you were saying, like there's enough bits in the movie that you can forgive it for its flaws, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what I love is that it's a really complete movie. Like you could watch this movie over and over again and you won't be dissatisfied, you
Yeah,
know?
I did make mention of that. It's a movie with a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
yeah, it sort of sets up some stuff with the scarier lich. Like, it
but
does,
it
but
does, but it doesn't really do it. Like
no, not enough. Like, not
yeah.
enough that it's incomplete. You know, it reminds me a lot of like the early MCU movies, like the Phase One, like pre, um,
Mhm.
like the original Iron Man and like the
Yeah.
original Captain America, where it's like, yeah, these clearly there's more to this story if possible, but the movie's over. Like
Mhm.
And I didn't realize how much I was like pleased about that. You know, like that's a thing that like I am strapped for right now. It feels like everything I pick up is incomplete.
Yeah.
You know, like so many movies I watch and so many shows are just these like perpetual like it's like they're just not done. They're just not done. Like and it's wearing on me like as like as a viewer. So there was something kind of refreshing about the fact of like, yep, this is done basically. Like I see what they're hoping for, but the movie's done, you
Yeah.
know. Um we don't have to hear from these characters again. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like good even. I'm pleased, you know, like I don't
Yeah.
really want it.
Yeah.
I don't need it. Like I'm much happier having the story be over and have, you know, Ed, which is Chris Pine's character, realizing that, oh, I had my family all along and like, you know, I did save my daughter's mom. Great. Like story complete. Done. Like, thank you. You
Yeah.
told a story. You did. You told a story and it's over.
Mhm.
And that's awesome. You know, all the villains that we care about got their comeuppance, you know, and yeah, pleased about that for sure.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
Um I mean, folks should go see it. It's not a waste of money. Um
No,
like
no,
I
not at
think I
all.
think it's a good time, you know, see it with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, if that inspires you to pick up pen and paper and roll some dice, great. Um I know certainly you and I will be talking about probably more fantasy storytelling stuffs in the coming days,
Mm-hmm.
weeks, months after this,
Yeah,
purely because of our thoughts on like original fantasy ideas, you know? Um,
absolutely. And you know, I did come away from this movie feeling like looking forward to my game next week. I'll say
yeah.
that, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um I think this is all I could have asked for, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
All we could have asked for, it's satisfied. It's a fun romp. It is Guardians of the Galaxy, but D&D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And man, does Zenkiendar steal the scene?
Oh, he does.
Uh,
Arguably some of the best, just like parts of
yeah.
that whole, just very funny, very. It's a take on Drax, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Yeah.
instead of stupid, it's similarly blunt, but it's just a take on Drax for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, man.
Mm-hmm. This
Thanks for
was
staying up
fun.
late. Yeah, this was good. I'm excited to cut together the episode with all the recordings you sent me. So,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you said too.
yeah.
Because I don't know yet,
Yeah.
and we'll have to do this again. We'll have to pick another movie.
Yeah. Definitely another movie. Who knows what movie though?
But it is 20 minutes to midnight,
Yep. You got to
so
get to bed.
I am gonna call it here. This has been an utter delight.
Yes.
Um, I would presume this one's coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and edit it like tonight or tomorrow since I still have a few hours till midnight. So
Dope.
we'll see
Love
what
to hear it.
happens. But yeah, refresh that feed when you get up.
Wait, if they're
Uh,
hearing it, oh, you're telling me. You're just
I'm
telling me.
telling you. I'm just
Okay, all
telling
right.
you. But if the
Clearly, I'm
audience is,
getting tired.
yeah,
I'm.
clearly, you know, it's yeah. All right, I'm gonna let you go.
Good night. Good
Have a good night.
morning, or what have yous. Um, hope this was as fun for those listening as it has been for me.
Yeah. It's been a blast. I've enjoyed. Go see Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves in theaters this Friday, March 31st. Or no,
Hell yeah.
is it this? Yeah, this Friday. No, this Saturday.
Um,
No, this Friday,
this
March
Friday.
31st. Jeez.
This Friday.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold with you. Sometimes you tell me jump in, come on and swim, but why am I still here? It all seems so clear. I'm out here on the sand, not far from land. Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold with you. Out here on the sand, not far from land. Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold